Hi guys, welcome to the Me, Myself and Mine podcast. Today's guest is a wellbeing company that specialises in the mental and physical health of teachers, and they are called TeachStrong. We're going to be discussing the 5 pillars of wellbeing and the small changes that we can all implement into our lives to create a better and healthier lifestyle. We hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Hi guys, how are you?
Hello, we're good, thank you. You?
Yeah, we're really good, thank you.
Fantastic.
Holding up pretty well. Would you guys like to introduce yourself to the viewers and listeners?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Julia.
Yeah, and I'm Sam.
And we are the founders of TeachStrong. And TeachStrong is a wellbeing company for those working in schools. So we deliver training sessions with the aim of boosting physical, emotional, and mental health of school staff. We go into schools and deliver training, and now with the current situation we've adapted and we have started delivering our training online as well. So we provide a lot of tips and a lot of information around well-being, and more importantly we teach them how to build simple and sustainable habits so that they can thrive in the classroom and outside the classroom as well.
Yeah, we've noticed that you've been doing those webinars, and how have they been going?
Yeah, they've been going really well. We've had a good response to them. It's nice that we've been able to do our part and put something out there. And the feedback that we've had has been very much, this has been so useful and it's been so timely. I remember one of our testimonials said it's been so timely when we've offered it. And, you know, it's great. During the sessions, people have been very chatty and interactive. We've been able to share all our ideas. They're commenting and asking questions. And then from there, just saying, yes, we're going to go away and try some of these habits that you're talking about and see when they do make a difference, because we know that they will make a difference.
That's we're going to try them with our family, with our kids, with our husbands. So It's nice how it spreads as well to their community.
Brilliant. So TeachStrong, just talk us through when did you first form TeachStrong, and what was some of the main reasons of why you formulated this fantastic company?
So the the idea behind TeachStrong has been there for a good few years. I don't know how many years, since back when I was at university, and then since then after training to be a teacher, even before that working as a teaching assistant in schools, because I've always been passionate about physical and mental health and well-being. And so it was always kind of on the back burner thinking, well, how could I combine these two things, my two passions, and put something out there that would help a lot of people? But really we thought about it more seriously. Coming up to 2 years ago, I think we actually, went to company's house and registered the company. But then we spent a lot of time researching, locking ourselves away in a library in Spain, weren't we? Near the beach, but we were in the library and just writing a program and writing resources, coming up with as many ideas as possible. Trialed all of those ideas with some friends and family, and even some people in the local community that work in schools. And then it was January of last year that we kind of put TeachStrong out there to the world and really said hello on social media and made the website and that kind of thing. So it's been over a year now.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's been over a year since we've been going more seriously. And then the other question was about the kind of reasons behind it, was it, Dominic? Yeah. So there's a few different reasons. One of them is, well, you only have to look at the stats around around well-being in schools, and especially pupils and staff as well. So there was a survey last year. Well, every year there's a survey called the Teacher Wellbeing Index, and last year they carried it out again. And some of those stats that you hear that are things like 3/4 of education professionals would describe themselves as stressed. And it's an even higher proportion among senior leaders, so your assistant head teachers and deputy head teachers and head teachers. And another one is, I think it's 57% have thought about leaving the profession in the last 2 years. And so that's one reason, just realizing that that's not sustainable, is it? And how can we
improve?
How can we maintain our schools and all the things that we want our schools to achieve with the pupils if the teachers are feeling that way? So that's one of the reasons. And then linked to that is the fact that we feel very strongly that teachers are role models. They're models for this next generation of children that are coming through. They help shape the minds and bodies and the souls of these young humans. And so we want to be part of that as well. And thankfully, the conversation is shifting that way. We are seeing a lot more people talking about, we can't deal with student well-being if we don't deal with staff well-being. So it's a really exciting time, I think, at the moment to have TeachStrong and be involved with people like yourselves and people that are working specifically in schools.
And it's, you guys are teachers yourselves. So have you guys felt those pressures before?
In terms of well-being and stress and things?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I was a teaching assistant first. Then I trained to be a teacher in Birmingham and did my NQT year, like your first year of teaching in Birmingham as well. And yeah, it was really, really tough at times. And talking to colleagues around that time, you could tell that wasn't how it was when they trained to be a teacher. It's only very recently where the workload, the paperwork, the accountability has just increased and increased and increased year on year. I mean, they are talking about doing more things about it. There's arguments around whether that's been very effective with talking about reducing workload and the paperwork and things. Whether that's actually happening in schools is kind of up for debate. But yes, when I tried to be a teacher, it was demanding, and that's another reason behind TeachStrong, is because I can completely empathise. I've been there and I've done that, and I had sleepless nights worrying about lessons the next day. I had to, waking up early in the morning to prepare resources, spending hours marking books, all of those things you go through. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it's the fast-paced society that we live in, and maybe it's having to meet those targets all of the time.
Yeah, it's become so data-driven, hasn't it? It's all just data and league tables and things, and it's not, the data isn't around the things that really matter, are they? They're around scores in a test. They're not around happiness and well-being, which is such a shame.
Yeah. Because I think it's important for all of us to experience that happiness, isn't it? Rather than just sort of dictating the knowledge to the youngsters and just passing tests. They've got to develop themselves, haven't they, as humans, and they've got to feel relaxed.
Exactly. And that, I suppose, is an even broader conversation, isn't it, of the kind of the state of the world that we're in at the moment. What actually is bringing us happiness and joy, and what is a good measure of success?
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this, haven't we, in the past? And Dominic, I think we've chatted about this on a social media post recently. We're measuring fame and money and exactly, all these sense of entitlement, all those things, when actually that's not what really matters. And people have been saying that for thousands of years. That's not what really matters. So why aren't we instilling that in our children?
And then I suppose it is the teacher. And I mean, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later. It is that if that teacher's carrying the stress, then they're going to pass it on through body language, through how they speak, through how they teach onto those children. So maybe we aren't actually teaching the students the best possible way to actually learn the information.
Yes. And that's why we think the teachers have to learn it themselves before passing it on to the pupils.
Yeah, 100%. And in your introduction about yourself, we were speaking a little bit about some of the workshops that you guys provide, and we've been to one of your workshops that you did for a community, and the same as you guys have been to our workshops, and we speak about a lot of the same things when it comes to the fundamental pillars of health and well-being. whether that's for your mental or whether that's for your physical health. They all go hand in hand. And we'd just like to have a little bit of a discussion into these pillars of health. You know, starting with why movement's so important.
Yeah, movement is a big one. We love this topic. Well, it's one of the many topics we love. But yeah, so one of our goals, I suppose, is to decrease sedentary behaviour and get people moving more. And I know that's one of your goals as well, for lots of different reasons. But just begin with the kind of the state of the world at the moment, and especially in developing countries like the UK, we are more sedentary than ever, aren't we? Whether that's sitting down for hours in front of the TV or using a car for short journeys, all of those things mean that we are a lot more sedentary than we used to be. And this has been described as the silent killer. You know, being sedentary increases risk of chronic diseases like heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, as well as, of course, leading to weight gain and obesity, which can exacerbate other complications as well. And kind of linked to that as well is the fact that we know now that you could be hitting your physical activity targets throughout the week. So you could be going to the gym for, say, an hour every day, and you might be running as well. But the fact is, if you're then spending the rest of your time sitting down, whether that's at the office or on the sofa, then you're kind of undoing all that hard work, aren't you? And you're still putting yourself at risk of those diseases and ill health. And so that's what we want to promote. Those are the ideas that we want to talk about. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say that, like you're saying there, we're designed to move. You know, our ancestors didn't go to the gym for 1 hour. There wasn't a gym, but they moved continuously throughout the day, didn't they? You know, whether they were foraging for food, whether they were building things. It's just been ingrained into our society that, you know, I'm saying that an hour of movement is better than no movement. But living the rest of your life in this quick fix, I can just chill out, I don't need to move, is like you were saying, a silent killer.
It's detrimental, isn't it, as you guys are talking about? And thousands of years ago, we were the same. Basically, the body was the same. It's just technology has moved on and sort of caused us all to be, you know, less manual, sedentary, sitting still for longer periods of time. Which
we talk about the blue zones, and this is this project where they looked at the areas in the world with the people will live the longest and happiest lives. And it's all to do with the environment, like you're saying. And environment has shifted in a way that we can be sitting down for most of our day, and we really don't need to walk many places or do any physical activity. And these people in these areas, they actually, their environment, not just them to move during the day continuously, so they don't have this sedentary behavior, but they have to walk places or cycle or carry things.
So that's that's what we're all about, is how can we work with people to find those opportunities during the day, whether you are a teacher or TA or any other job that you might do. Where are those opportunities during the day to walk more or whatever it is? But then also, like you were saying, Dan, this is no kind of slight against people who enjoy exercising, because I love exercising and I visit the gym and I love to do HIIT workouts and things, and that's great because there are many proven benefits as well. But they have to work kind of in tandem, don't they? So move more during the day and then find things that you love. That's another thing that we really want people to understand, is find ways of moving more, being physically active that you enjoy and that you'll be able to do, we talk about, that you'll be able to do until you're 80. So if you don't enjoy the gym and you don't enjoy doing a couch to 5K, then don't do it. Find another way to move more. Do yoga, go to salsa lessons, whatever it is. And then at the same time, if you want to run and if you want to go to the gym and lift weights, then that's okay too.
There isn't a one-size-fits-all when it comes to exercising and becoming healthier. Like you're saying, you have to find out for yourself almost what your preference is and what works best for you. But I think the main thing is we have to move. So no matter what that is, you need to be doing something. And just like you were saying about, you shouldn't just go for 1 hour and then you sit down. Trying to make those
often, isn't it?
small changes to your day where you think, oh, I could actually move there. I could walk there. I could take my break. I could take the stairs instead of the elevator. And it's just all that accumulation of things adds up over time and creates that healthier body that's more resistant to stress and more resistant to a decline in health, I suppose.
And that's exactly what we do when we go into schools and we talk about the area of movement, how we call it, is look at the routine of a teacher and see where can we implement a bit more movement into their routine and walking. And
You can talk about looking. Oh, sorry.
That's fine.
Sorry.
Fitting it literally into their timetable, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Scheduling it. Yeah.
One other approach I've seen is looking for inconvenience as well. So, like you said, don't get the lift at that. Instead, choose the stairs. Or I've heard people suggesting, get off at the earlier bus stop, get off one stop earlier, so you just have to walk that little bit further. Just those little tweaks.
And I think the important thing with everything, isn't it? Everything you ever talk about in life is becoming more conscious. Once you become more conscious that we need to move more, that we need to do this and that, and you become educated on it, that's when it starts to spark up into the mind, and you then make your own decisions that are only small decisions, but like you said, taking the bus stop earlier, that needs a conscious decision. And if we're living unconsciously because we're not aware and we're not educated, we would never do that, because that would seem counter intuitive, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And to have that understanding, I think it has to become a personal experience. So now you're going to hear us talk about all these amazing benefits. It's not going to become real to you unless you give it a go. And that's when you become conscious of it, is because you've seen the before and after. You've seen how you're a much better person after the 5-minute walk around the block or around the park, or how much better you feel when you go into school because you've got off at one bus stop earlier and you've had a bit of fresh air and you've had time to be outdoors and broaden your mind and look far away, and you're gonna gain that awareness once you've experienced it.
But I feel like our society has almost become the other way, though, because there's so much information and knowledge that's readily available everywhere. We almost feel like we've already got it. But it's okay to know something, but you need to actually do it and experience it to reap those benefits. It's okay knowing that exercise is good for you, but if you never actually do it, you're never going to experience it, and you're never going to then take that forward and continue it on. But our society has become so ingrained in the knowledge that we're almost like lacking in experience.
Yeah.
You think, oh yeah, I know exercise is good for me, but you don't actually know it because you haven't seen all the benefits for yourself. You haven't seen how the mood shifts. You haven't seen how much energy you've got, how much more productive you are. And that's when you truly know that exercise is actually a pillar of your health.
Definitely. And
it stops being something theoretical.
And I think as we're discussing here, it's a lived experience, and pardon the pun, like the bus journey. The habits that we need to implement need to become conscious, so they're not automatic, so we realise what we are doing and what we're not doing, and therefore it improves our health and our mood. And even on that note, mood, one of the other pillars is meditation. I don't know whether you guys want to elaborate a little bit, what is meditation and how beneficial is that, that you actually utilise?
Meditation is an ancient practice, and it's been around for thousands of years. And I like the quote that my meditation teacher uses about meditation, which is that meditation is not closing your eyes, but meditation is opening your eyes to life.
Yeah.
And it's opening your eyes to your inner life, especially. So when we meditate, you try and go within, and observe all these thoughts and emotions, observe the physical sensations that you're normally not aware of. And it's a tool to get to know yourself, to get to know how you function.
Yeah.
So when we meditate, we try and practice this being neutral, being not judging anything that we become aware of, and training our attention and training our ability to create space, distance between us and what there is, what we observe. So this is very useful for everyday situations because we become less reactive. So you have that more space to be able to choose what's the best response in every different circumstance, different situation. So for a teacher, I think that's very important because you have all these impressions coming in, the kids and the other colleagues and your heads. And so when something goes wrong, if you build that space, that distance, then you will be able to maybe not react by getting anxious and stressed or upset, but actually you'll have, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, you got that calm, that space to actually choose the most useful action for that situation.
So you're saying that the great thing about it, would you say it has a calming and a soothing effect on whoever does it, and especially if it's the teacher, he or she is going to get a calm aura to the audience. So these youngsters are going to feel calm because you feel calm. Is that what you're alluding to? Sounds great.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, isn't it? Part of it is then just the way you'll hold yourself, and if you're that much more grounded and, like you said, calm, then people feed off that. I think we're talking about this later, aren't we? People feed off that, but also, like Julia said, it's that training of the mind, just like we exercise for our body. Meditation is training for the mind, isn't it? And if we can if we can choose, like Julia said, those more useful reactions to situations, but then also, the pupils will see that as well, because they see when things don't quite go right in a lesson. I've been there when the projector isn't working or something hasn't printed off or whatever it is, but I can model to the children what the most useful reaction is, and it's not to slam my hand on the desk or get frustrated and tut. It's okay, right, well, what do I need to do to solve this? How can I learn from this? What's the next step?
And it's like what we was talking about with exercise. It's okay. Our lifestyles have become this unconscious pattern, and that's the same with the body as it is the mind. We're living our lives through unconscious, subconscious patterns of behaviour that we don't even realise. So I definitely agree with meditation gives you that opportunity to become conscious and to see things for what they really are, rather than just your experience at the time.
Yes, so instead of going to that habitual pattern, instead of, oh, something doesn't work, I get upset, I get anxious, you have the possibility, because you've gained that distance, to actually say, oh, there's another path here. I actually could just remain calm. I could actually smile. And that is going to blow the mind of some of your students, because they've never seen that. They've never seen an adult, maybe they don't have that reference at home of an adult, something goes wrong, and they actually remain calm. And you are literally creating a new pattern for them, which is just beautiful.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, because you're making better decisions yourself, like you said, and these youngsters are impressionable, and that's going to stay with them. They literally, any human can see if the projector breaks down or something falls on the floor. Anybody would sort of lose the temper, but if you're nice and calm, that has a wonderful conducive effect for education, doesn't it? They're going to learn. It's going to be a calmer, happier environment, and I think that's what we're all after. And the youngsters then will look forward to coming to your lessons, which is part and parcel of it, isn't it? They've got to look forward to your lesson, not just because of the content, but because of you. You are the reason. Which sounds great. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
I know that you have no control over the school system and what gets taught and anything like that. But have you ever implemented maybe 5 minutes of deep breathing or relaxation, or as we'd say, meditation before a lesson to see how that then impacts the students and also yourself? Because it's a well-known fact that meditation activates our parasympathetic nervous system, allows us to relax, de-stress. So I wonder how that plays out if you do that before a lesson, once they've come in from lunch, get them to sit down and to focus and to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have. It was after Christmas that I suggested this idea to the head teacher at the school that I work at the moment. And I came up with this idea of movement and mindfulness in the morning and in the afternoons. And so what I've introduced is 4 minutes of a workout and then 1 minute of meditation. So, I work in a year 3 class, which is 7 and 8 year olds, and they have got into this habit of that. Yeah, we come in the morning and we do this quick 4 minute workout, which is just body weight. It just gets our heart rate up. And then we sit down and we meditate for 1 minute, and it's only a minute, but it makes a difference. You can just see the things just melt away from them as they sit there. And it's so good how good they've gotten at it as well. They will just do it automatically. And that's what we're trying to create, is these habits. We spoke about it with Brian from the breathing workshop, who I know you know, when we chatted with him recently. And he talked about it as well, that if you can give those children that opportunity to practice that, so that then when they're an adult, like Julia was saying, they know that there's another route I can take here. And if I am feeling a bit down or angry today, then there's something that I can do whenever I need to help. So I've introduced that, and some other classes in my school have been doing it as well. And the teachers say that it makes a difference and that behaviour has improved since then. But it's only been a short amount of time, and some people have been more consistent than others. But it would be really interesting to set up a study in my school, really make sure everyone does it for 3 months, 6 months, and measure the effects. But, just anecdotally, I can certainly say that it's made a difference.
Yeah. That sounds really. I think with everybody, we always want evidence, don't we? So in the future, that'd be great if you could set up like a controlled study, permission off everyone, and then produce that evidence that the pupils are far calmer, the happier.
Yeah.
And other staff, what have you done to them? And like, we've just done some meditation and exercise.
Yeah. And we know that has been done. Those studies have been done in schools, and there are articles about it. There's TED Talks about it, saying that, I think one TED Talk discusses a school that got rid of detentions and, writing lines as a punishment, and instead introduced meditation as their kind of reflection time, and it made a huge difference. And I think that was set up more like a study. So there's definitely the evidence out there that this works. I haven't been the author of that study yet. I will.
So interesting. I remember being at school and you'd have lines or detention. You don't learn anything. You don't learn anything about yourself. You don't learn anything about why you're there. You don't even really you're writing the lines. And again, it's that automatic subconscious. You're not even conscious of what you're writing, because when you've wrote it a few times, you just keep going.
There's no focus, is there?
No. So that'd be amazing to start implementing that in more schools as a, it's not a punishment, but it's almost like a relearning hour or half an hour, however long it is.
It is happening. It is being introduced more. There's the Mindfulness in Schools project. There are other companies out there that are teaching children how to meditate or be mindful.
Yeah.
I think that will grow, and I think we'll see more and more of it. I'd like to think that, one day in schools it will just be part of the timetable that every child does it.
Absolutely. And if we move on from that, we both know, and us two as well, that you guys take pride in the food and the nutrition that you guys consume. Would you like to go into a little bit more detail about how nutrition affects our well-being? and how to implement that into schools?
Yeah, this is another instance of becoming more consciously aware of something, because I think we've been told lots of different messages about nutrition, and you only have to go on social media for 5 minutes to see about 100 different viewpoints around what you should be doing nutrition wise. But we just want to break it all down, and we've gone through all the research. We've spoken with lots of the experts and nutritionists and doctors. And what's become clear is just how simple it is. And that's the message that we're trying to convey to the people that work with TeachStrong. But kind of to go back as our kind of starting point, it's been said that every bite you take is either fighting disease or fueling it. So that's kind of our starting point with everything that we do nutrition wise. Every ingredient that we look at, we think, right, well, is this fighting disease or fueling it? So that's what we're passionate about. So we love just focusing on the foods that have been proven time and time again to be good for us in the long term, not just the short term, because as I'm sure you two both know, there are many ways of eating where you can quickly lose weight, but are they the best thing to do for your long-term health? Probably not. In fact, most likely that no, they're not. But the foods that have been consistently proven to be good for us are whole grains, whole grain rice and pasta and bread, vegetables, fruits, legumes, so chickpeas and lentils and kidney beans, all of those things, and nuts and seeds. And so we just believe that no matter what your diet, whatever label you might want to give yourself in terms of your dietary preferences, that's absolutely fine. But we just want to make it as easy as possible for people to be eating more of those whole food ingredients. Because we've seen that filling your plate with these foods means you're reducing your risk of chronic disease. It enables you to really easily maintain a healthy weight. And more recently, we're seeing more evidence about how it also affects your mood as well, your mental health and your emotional well-being, which I think is fascinating. And always kind of underpinning this as well is the fact that these ingredients are things we can do in terms of climate change as well, which when we first realized that, it was mind-blowing. But the biggest and best studies that have looked at the impact of food on our environment show us that, well, if we lean towards a more plant-based diet, then it's one of, if not the most effective and kind of practical and accessible things that we can do to reduce our carbon footprint.
And it all comes back to that becoming conscious of our actions and becoming conscious of what we're putting in our mouths. Because
the consequences.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, trash food is being sold to us all of the time. It's on adverts. You see it at bus stops on an advertisement. You can see it on billboards. And it's consistently bombarding our subconscious minds if we're living in that subconscious pattern. Oh, I'll get that, and I'll get that, and I'll eat that. And if you combine that with the fast-paced, stressed-out lifestyle that we live in, we want the convenience, but that convenience won't serve us in the long term. It is going to damage the body even more, because it might taste great for a second, but you never feel great afterwards. That half an hour afterwards after you've ate a takeaway. And I'm not saying we should never do this, because that's part of a balanced life. But if you're constantly doing that, how do we then expect our internal body to digest and function and produce serotonin, allow us to feel good if we're not feeding it the foods that we should be eating that have a high nutritious content?
On that, fighting the disease, as Dan's saying, and you guys are talking about, I mean, it's like the convenience food. It's all about short-term pleasure for long-term pain. And unfortunately, the youngsters today, that's all they know, the junk food. When I grew up, I'm 50 plus, there was no McDonald's, there was no certain, brands out there, well-known brands. And this is affecting, as you said, not just the mood, but the growth of the individual. But also, I should imagine, if a youngster has a chocolate bar before they go to school, their energy level is going to rush and crash within half an hour. So how are they actually going to learn within your lesson or any school?
Or energy drinks, which are a major issue now.
You see it all the time. Children walking to school with a can of, I guess I shouldn't name any brands or whatever, but a can of an energy drink and some crisps or chocolate, and that's their breakfast.
Yeah.
But this is the environment that has been created, and it's been allowed to be created, hasn't it? This is a situation that has been allowed to happen. It means that these foods are really accessible for children and for adults. You just look at the way that they're placed. They are in petrol stations, and they're in the queues for shops. Even if a closed shop, will in the queue you'll just see sweets and chocolates and fizzy drinks. And so the fact that people choose this is not their fault. It's nothing to do with willpower. The whole argument of willpower is if you were just a bit more disciplined, it would be fine. That argument has been thrown out a long time ago. Now everyone realizes, well, it's the environment, and if these sugary treats have been packaged and marketed in such a way, of course, our brains have been hacked to think that this is okay and this is a good option. And it's such a sorry state that we've gotten into with that.
And I think that's why you guys do such a tremendous job of educating these youngsters and the audience you meet and greet. It's all about educating them on what is best for the body, not just for the short term, but for the long term. That's going to affect the health of the nation, and as you mentioned before, the health of the planet. If we're not choosing the right foodstuffs.
And I definitely like what you said about if you're consuming a chocolate bar or a sugary drink, that's going to boost your blood sugar level massively. And if we're eating whole foods, when we eat whole foods and healthy foods, our blood sugar levels should be, stable. So we're going to have that consistent mood, and we're going to be more focused. We're going to feel better in the long term. Those sugary foods are only going to allow us to feel good for, say, 30 minutes. And it's almost like a high. I don't know if you guys have been away from sugary food for a little bit and then had it. It's almost like you're on something because your heart rate increases. You feel, I know I do, I feel kind of jittery. So imagine doing that consistently throughout the day, up, down, up, down. No wonder there are problems within schools and,
affecting behaviours, isn't it? Behaviours becoming erratic, I think. And what alluding to there is going back to meditation, where Julie was talking about, sitting quietly and focusing, because you've got the resources within you. It's almost as if society is saying you've got to reach outside of yourself to feel good. Just to make money, but to feel good. But you can feel good just by sitting there and relaxing. You don't have to reach out and get these hits of dopamine and serotonin. Feel good about yourself. You can actually feel good without those hits. With better.
It's such a complicated and diverse topic. It's really interesting. Like you mentioned earlier, that you will have sugary treats and will have sugary treats, and that's okay every so often. We talk about the 80-20 rule. Try and aim for 80% of what you eat as being whole food, natural ingredients, and then maybe that other 20% can be more of those processed treats. But we need more education out there, and we need more changes in the environment, and hospitals and schools should be kind of on the front line of that. They should be, I think it's Jamie Oliver that describes them as, or said that they should be safe spaces. Whatever you choose to eat at home, whatever the children eat at home, okay, but a school and a hospital should be a safe space where the only things available are things that are fighting disease. And this is linked to physical health, and it's linked to mental health. Just going back on your points about serotonin, 80 to 90% of the serotonin produced is in the gut, isn't it? And the gut microbiome feeds on those whole food, plant-based ingredients. They don't feed on chocolate bars and sweets and energy drinks. And so we need to get that message out there as well. sure.
And another, just moving on to the next area, you know, one of the biggest pillars of health is connection, you know, connection between human beings. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how you guys project that to an audience or between yourselves even?
Yeah, well, we highlight the importance of connection because it's a key area of your well-being, and sometimes we forget, but it's really interesting the profound effect that the people around us will have on our levels of happiness and also on our health. So if we're healthy and happy, when the people around us are healthy and happy, then we will in turn be healthy and happy. So we believe this is an important part of the conversation around well-being. And it's true, we're social creatures and we were meant to bond closely with, we call it our tribe. We need our tribe around us. And we've lost a bit of that, unfortunately. And now we think that having a lot of people messaging us on Facebook or having a lot of followers on Twitter, that means that we have a lot of friends, but that's not what a tribe is. A tribe is a strong, meaningful relationship with friends, with family, with colleagues. And there's a ton of fascinating studies out there about how this close-knit circle of people that share these interests and that will support you when times are hard, that can be a strong indicator of health and longevity.
Yeah, it's the Harvard study of adult life. I don't know if you've heard that, but that's particularly interesting when looking at this area. And this is a project in Harvard, in Boston, obviously, and near Boston, and it's followed people for 80 years. And it's shown that it's not about money, it's not money or fame or working hard that's going to keep you happy and mean that you live longer, but it's those close relationships to friends and family and the community that really matter, isn't it?
Robert Walding, because we've looked at that study as well. I think it was a doctor, 80-year study. It's interesting that you brought it up because, again, we were talking about, you know, whether it's material possessions or reaching outside of ourselves to feel good. It just goes to show, you know, from thousands of years ago to now, it's really integral about the bonding. It's the flesh and blood bonding. It's not just the virtual. I know us guys were on a Zoom call, on a virtual call at the moment, which is great. But I'm sure we would all agree it's not the same as being in the same room. Would we agree?
No, of course.
Yeah, that's my correct. Go on, carry on, Julie. Sorry.
One thing I found fascinating about connection is that you can be surrounded with people all day long. You can live in a big house with lots of family members, but you can still feel lonely. And so the important factor of this is having those meaningful relationships, really cultivating them and really nourishing them so that you feel that support, you feel the love, and you feel the connection. And that's the main thing. And same with the virtual world. We can be surrounded with all these notifications and comments and likes and messages, but at the end of the day, that is not, it doesn't leave us feeling full. It leaves us feeling rather empty.
It is having those deeper conversations sometimes. And, you know, sometimes we're too busy in our own little bubble. We brush over the surface. And I think we need to make time and make space in our busy lives, in our stressful lives, to have the proper conversations with people. No, who are you? Not just how are you? You know, brushing across the surface. It's actually that eye contact. It's actually that I'm here for you, and let's talk. And I noticed you were talking about social media, all these notifications. And I can't slate social media, because if we didn't have social media, we wouldn't be talking right now. And the COVID situation, we would be in a different situation, even worse, because you wouldn't be able to connect with other people. But over social media, that tribe is too big for what we can handle. You know, tribes, you know, wouldn't have known hundreds of thousands of people. They wouldn't have been trying to make hundreds of thousands of people happy and comparing their lives to these people. They'd have maybe known, you know, 40 to 100 people in their whole life. So we spend too much time just connecting through social media, it can affect our mental well-being and leave us in a state of always trying to provide others and make other people happy with surface level content.
Yeah. As Dan's saying that, I think it's well known that studies within companies that if the company is over 250 people, you almost become lost in a sea of people. They're not as productive, they're just a number. And the connections we're talking about is probably really about what we've learned as a company is listening. There's a phrase or a sentence which never a truer meaning has been heard, really, is listening with the intent to understand, not to reply. I think that's key. To understand people, as Julie was saying, you can be in that house full of people or in a relationship with somebody, and you feel lonelier than if you're on your own because they're not listening to you. And it's coming back to being conscious, not unconscious. We've got to be conscious, not automatic in our thoughts. So then we can make better decisions to listen to our loved ones and professionally as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, agree with all of that. And I think partly the lack of connection can be a busy thing, but it can also be a bit of a British thing as well, that we are so polite and we're, oh no, I don't want to bother anyone. So I'll just say, if someone says, how are you? I'll just say I'm fine, and we'll just leave it like that. And there was a really nice moment for me personally, well, for both of us actually, because you were there as well, recently, where we went round to a friend's house and said, how are you? But instead of just that quick answer, they actually kind of quite quickly opened up and said, oh, well, actually, this has been bothering me, and also this has been bothering me. And I just wanted someone to talk to about that. And then they started apologizing, saying, I'm so sorry, you just popped in to drop off I think I was dropping off a book. And I was like, don't apologize. This is great. Let's have this conversation. That's absolutely fine. We shouldn't be apologizing to each other. Of course, you might have to check with someone if they're ready for you to unload onto them, if you have got some problems or difficulties that you're going through. But I think if someone's asking how you are, then yeah, like you said, let's make eye contact and really explain and go into how we're feeling and help each other.
And I feel like I've said before in other podcasts, when we are stressed, we're in our own little bubble, and the brain doesn't work effectively when we're under high amounts of stress, and actually explaining our situation to somebody else, we can then get a different perspective that maybe we would have been able to see before. And
viewpoint, isn't it?
And then just that can reframe our whole viewpoint on the current situation, and it makes us feel a lot better that we've got a different avenue of where we want to place our attention and have something.
Yeah, I feel like when we talked about meditation, we call it the inner well-being branch, is very interconnected with what we call community, or these relationships, because we can then, and it's been proven some of the benefits of meditation is about being more empathetic and higher levels of compassion and feeling more connected to those around us. So what we were saying about mindful listening as well, and really being there for them and trying to understand them and trying to connect at a deeper level and not being in your own bubble, because if you're stressed, obviously you can't be bothered about those people's problems and you're just too focused on your own. So very interconnected. You go within, you assess your well-being, and then you can open up being the best version of yourself, being approachable, being relaxed, and being there for others, wanting to connect with others, because it's one of the most beautiful things in life, is just feeling connected to others.
Definitely. That sounds fantastic. And going back just to your previous comment about that person opening up to you, that's lovely to hear. And as you were telling me, in my mind, I'm looking at you guys, and we know you, of course, in the flesh and blood. No offense to you, but you are calm, considerate people, and you're authentic. Not saying everybody isn't considerate or authentic, but because you guys practice the meditation on a regular basis, which I know you guys do, you're calmer and you're more open. So therefore, you're providing that conducive, open environment. So maybe that person feel your vibes and wanted to open up. You didn't even have to say anything.
That's exactly what she said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of one of the biggest compliments someone can give you, isn't it? That, oh, you are so calm, and I feel like I can talk to you. I mean, there's no better words that what a friend or family member could say to you. But and what I will say though is that it's taken a lot of work. I have been very anxious in the past and not a calm person in the past and very jittery and all over the place. But it's something that you have to work on, just like we go to the gym or run a marathon or whatever it is. It takes work, and it's not me saying, oh yes, look, I'm better than anyone else. It's that, oh yeah, I feel proud because I'm better than me 5 years ago. I'm better than me 10 years ago. It's taken a bit of work, and now I'm calmer and more approachable, and that makes me very proud.
Sometimes life is learning and then relearning, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And we're sold this fallacy in the 21st century that you can get a quick fix, but there is no quick fix. There's just effort and time and consistency, and practicing to become a better person, more relaxed, more calm, more approachable. Eventually those things are going to work, and I think we just need to come away from this notion that it's a 2-week detox, achieve this in 4 weeks. Life takes work, and life is a marathon. It isn't a sprint. Yeah, but we've all done it. We've all been sucked into that before. But it's again becoming aware.
Yeah,
I think
that's not to say. Oh, sorry, no. I was going to say that's not to say that it would be difficult. Yes, it does take effort, but it doesn't mean that it has to be difficult to work on those things. It's like you say, it's consistent, but it's short little bits of consistency, small steps. Yeah, not a huge, oh, I've got to completely change my life and I've got to meditate for 2 hours a day if I want to achieve this. No, it's kind of those little bits during the day that if I adjust my routine, then that's how we're going to get results in the long term.
I think this is
vital.
That's great. I mean, I think it's vital, at this stage of our communication, but also in life, it is about the practice of it, and the proof will be in the pudding with your youngsters, because they've learned it at such an early age. Just think how the future generation is going to be, because they've been brought up with this calmness, this practice.
Yeah.
There's too much, unfortunately, in the 20th century and maybe into the 21st, people have relied on the short-term pleasure or even just pills. So once we realise that the physical and the mental practice is as important as one another, because most people think it's just the physical practice, just the exercise, but combine it with the meditation, that's really, really powerful. You're hitting all areas, whole bodies, you're treating it holistically, which is what you're doing, which is going to be fantastic. Keep doing it. When they go into senior school, college, maybe they'll be talking about it to their children. So it's education, which is good.
I hope so.
Earlier on in our conversation, you were talking about feeling the stress and the pressure and getting up earlier and having to, put together the assignment for later on in the day, or maybe you'd have taken that home and stayed up later of an evening and had to produce a piece of work for the next day. That brings me on to the next pillar of health, and that's sleep. Is fundamental for mental and physical health that we are getting adequate sleep. But it is something that I think people have neglected for a long time. And, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what we say when we offer a workshop or talk to people around well-being. When we discuss sleep, we say this is an all too often neglected area of well-being. And I was ignorant of it for a long time. I didn't realize just how important it was, not just for short-term, but for long-term health as well. Yeah. A great starting point for me was Matthew Walker's book. I don't know if you've read it, called Why We Sleep. And that's, I think anyone should, if it was wanting to learn more about the power of their sleep, should go and read that. Or you can watch his TED talk, which does a really good job of summarizing all his main points. But yeah, that kind of, that we had to include sleep in any conversation about well-being from the moment that we formed TeachStrong, because the evidence out there just shows, it's absolutely crucial. And this author that I mentioned before, who's a professor and has done a lot of studies into sleep, he would argue that although traditionally we've looked at nutrition and exercise as the two main branches of well-being, he would say that sleep is as important, if not more important, than those two other things. And that kind of blew my mind when I read it. It's like, wow, it's that vital. But he goes into it and talks about the effects that first of all, talks about the effects that a bad night's sleep can have on you, or chronic lack of sleep. And it's been linked to, again, chronic disease and weight gain and depression, exercise performance. So all those things in the long term. I think more people are familiar with the effect that a lack of sleep can have in the short term. You know, the next day we've all felt what that's like, being irritable and moody and not being able to concentrate, maybe forgetting things more easily. But it's those long-term implications that we found particularly fascinating, and just meant that, yes, we have to give people more information about this, and not to scare anyone or anything like that, but just to, like we said lots of times, to make people more conscious of this aspect. And one great example that we talk about is the people that will get up early to go to the gym. So maybe they'll be sacrificing sleep to go and exercise because they think that's more beneficial to their health. And actually that's been proven just not to be the case, hasn't it? You'd be far better off perhaps getting that extra hour or two in bed, and finding another way to get your physical activity in as well.
100%. And, you know, every animal on the planet has evolved to sleep. We sleep for a reason. We regenerate, we grow, we repair. And it's funny, you mentioned Matthew Walker. I remember listening to his podcast with Dr. Chatterjee.
Yeah.
And he was saying that if we are sleep deprived, the emotional center of the brain, the amygdala, can become up to 60% more active. And that activates our stress response, so our fight, flight, or freeze. So if you imagine, if we are sleep deprived, say as a teacher, and you're going into a classroom and your amygdala is firing off 60% more so than if you were rested, it's only going to take something small for the student to happen, and you're then going to take it well out of proportion and overreact, and that's going to cause a problem with you and the student and the whole learning process.
Yeah. And kind of linked to that as well is the effect that it has on the immune system as well. I don't know if you remember that point being made, that the huge reduction in our natural killer cell function if chronic sleep continues. And of course that then has massive implications for school staff, because if that means that they are more susceptible to those coughs and colds that are rife in a school, and they're absent for however long, then that has an effect on the colleagues around them, and of course the pupils as well.
I mean, everything is designed, isn't it, for our well-being, and we covered some of this earlier in the conversation. So that it's sort of a two-part question, really. Why is well-being so important for teachers, and is it being implemented? And if not, why not in school?
So I'm sure you can guess that we think that it's crucial. Yeah, we think it's very important that this conversation around well-being is being had among school staff. They're just in a particularly stressful profession, as we mentioned some of those statistics earlier, and that's not to say that other professions aren't stressful. Of course they are. But the added extra of this profession is that they are turning up for children, and that they're having some kind of effect on pupils in their classroom. And so that's why we think it's that much more important to be having more conversations around teacher well-being and things. So it is suffering at the moment, and that is because of those things that we've mentioned before, paperwork and other aspects of workload and accountability. Kind of even more expectations are placed on teachers now as well. They kind of have to fill about 50 different roles during the day. You have to be an educator and a counsellor and a first aider, all these different things that require different skill sets and knowledge. Yeah. But that is what people that do this job love. It's what they enjoy, wearing those different hats and being able to help in so many different ways. But at the same time, that can create a huge amount of stress on a person, because you might always be feeling inadequate, or like you're not quite doing your job properly. And I think that's what a lot of people that work in schools are experiencing at the moment. So that's our passion. That's what we want to address. And what you mentioned before earlier as well, Dom, about is it happening in schools? Is well-being being addressed in schools? I think it is being more addressed recently. The conversations are starting to take place more often about well-being for teachers. Before, it might have more centered around the students and just, what do we need to do for the students? But more people are talking about now, well, we need to look after the teachers as well. They've got to be a part of this conversation as well.
I think I think for far too long the focus has been on the students and the children, but what about the teachers who stand before them to educate them? Like you said, it's a catch-22. If you're not healthy and happy because you're wearing a parental role, because we know, unfortunately, that society is, families have been fractured, and that's then impacting, rippling out into the classroom, isn't it? Because you're having to put on a parental hat, because maybe at home it's not as consistent at home through no fault of their own, and you've got to address that in the classroom. Even going back to sleep, maybe they're on the PlayStation till 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're at school at 9. Even if they're a teenager, that's, they're getting inadequate sleep. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that's going to impact again on you as a teacher, and you've got to, navigate your way around that, which is, I should imagine, is quite challenging. Mm-hmm. So there's, all of these ingredients go towards you guys, putting your on for the class to help those students.
And if the teacher, adding into that, if the teacher hasn't looked after their own well-being, then there's only a limited amount of stress that they can cope with. Their threshold will be down here if the teacher isn't feeling well, and then imagine it just takes that little bit to push you over the edge, and then that creates a massive problem.
Yeah,
I think as human beings, we are designed to fight, flight, or freeze, and we don't want to be in that sympathetic nervous system or want to be reacting. We want to be making conscious decisions. I think that's what all of these pillars boil down to. Mm-hmm. It's about being more conscious, and as you're doing, guys, doing a tremendous job with the students, being that role model, showing that you are calm and collected, so it proves in society you don't have to be shouting, growling, or spitting to get respect. Mm-hmm. It is that loving component, isn't it? It's that calm energy, which is what I think society has been moving away from, but hopefully moving back to that.
Yeah, it's again a very complex topic, and schools are kind of a microcosm for society. All the things that are perhaps not quite going right in society are very much reflected in schools, and so we're always up against that. But I kind of added to that, we've got to, what am I trying to say here? Like we've said, we've got to be the model. And so whatever is happening around us, and although those things in society and in the wider world might not be set up the way that we think that they should be, and although schools perhaps aren't set up in the way that we think they should be, and the workload and all those different things are making it really, really difficult for staff, we say that we shouldn't let our health deteriorate until things get better. We can't sacrifice our well-being while we wait for things to improve. So that's why we think the work that we're doing is so important, because we're showing people that not that we can make the best of a bad situation. That's a kind of too simplistic, but it is one way of putting it, that we want to make the best of a bad situation and give people the tools to boost their well-being in whatever scenario that they're in.
It's almost filling your cup so you have more to give out.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't got that positivity yourself, if you haven't got it, how can you give it out?
Yeah.
And
definitely.
And how much do you think that how the teacher is feeling impacts on the student?
It's so much, because, well, we've talked about mirror neurons sometimes, and I don't know if you've heard about them, but it was Giacomo Rizzolatti and his team of neuroscientists discovered these mirror neurons, which, to put it very simply, just proves how we copy behaviors of the people around us and how highly influenced we are by the people that surround us. So if a teacher walks into a room and you can see that he's looking down, that he's hunching his shoulders, then the students, because of these mirror neurons, they reproduce the emotions, the same emotions that the teacher is feeling. So we do this constantly in and outside the classroom. That's why we say that emotions are contagious in a way. So, of course, some emotions are much more useful to learn and to have in a classroom than others. And if the teacher is stressed and anxious and the students are reproducing these emotions in them, well, of course, that's not the best state to be in, to take in new information. And if a teacher, on the other hand, is happy and enthusiastic and joyful, and that will engage the pupils and will make them to learn, because those are the emotions that you need to take in this new information.
Definitely. And it's massively interesting with the mirror neurons, because we copy behavior. You know, it's been seen throughout animals and obviously humans, that it's just so interesting to think that if a teacher or, you know, just a parent or anybody comes in with a different body language or with a different approach, how that can then change the reaction from the child. And it's interesting that sort of science is proving almost what we would think of as
invisible. You can't really see it, can you?
As the invisible, but almost like something that we should be implementing without even thinking about it. It's like, oh yeah, like, do you know what I mean?
An aha moment.
Yeah, it is interesting stuff.
Yes, our state is the most important thing we can give into a classroom. Taking control of your state, and then that body language will follow, and the way you deliver your lesson will follow. So always thinking, okay, what energy am I bringing to the lesson?
That's interesting. So when we look at, you know, we spoke about emotions, and we generally say, you know, before we do workshops, you know, we've got to be in the right state of mind. So you generally say an emotion is energy and motion within the body, positive and negative. Would you agree that an emotion for the youngsters and yourself is a reaction to a belief about the situation? So if we're negative, it could be a negative reaction to that situation, what we believe about that current situation, maybe our programming, you know, how the youngsters should act in our eyes, if that makes sense. Because we can stereotype people, can't we? You know, we could, the youngsters, they should behave this way. You know, that makes them inflexible.
And putting our belief systems over onto someone else.
Yeah.
And then that then affects their whole
colours their view,
environment.
Yeah, I find belief systems a fascinating topic. And we all have beliefs. It's not only teachers, of course. All of us have beliefs about ourselves, about others, and about life. And as you said, there are these rigid labels that then sometimes can be limiting, because they just don't allow us to see further away. We've labeled this person as such and such, or life is this way, and we don't believe that there's anything different than that. So these beliefs, they've been handed down from our parents and from our teachers, and that's why we think that it's very important work for teachers to revisit their beliefs and question them. So I said that they've been handed down from some of them from when we were really, really little, really young. And when you're young, you don't have the ability to question things. You can't verify things, so you just take them as true. The danger is that then we carry on living our lives by these beliefs, never having them verified, and then you might find that they're actually not true. Which is so liberating when you see beyond that horizon and you see actually there is a possibility. This is possible, and I didn't think it was before because of something that it was said to you and you just believed it true. So we are very careful to take care when you're saying things in front of your students. Just stop and think, because we very easily say, this is wrong, this is the right way, or this is how things are meant to be. Life is hard, or people from this country or this race are this way. And then, the list goes on, and the students can believe your same beliefs, and this is how they get passed on. I find the most dangerous beliefs is the one about ourselves. Yeah. So for example, if a teacher believes in you and they think that you are going to go out to the world to do great things and that you can achieve great things, you might end up believing that. And that is very empowering because you will act accordingly. So you will display those behaviors. And the interesting thing is, even if you display a behavior that is contradictory, that is opposite, because it won't fit into your new belief system, into your new identity, you will say, this is not me. And you'll go back to doing what you believe it's you. So the beliefs we have around ourselves, I think, are the main ones that we all have to revisit because we limit ourselves so much. Yeah. Then the opposite scenario is true. When a teacher doesn't believe that his or her pupils can change because they've always behaved this way, they display this behavior, so we label them as naughty or as low achievers. Students pick up on that, and it's crucial that we check our beliefs, because they might end up believing that, and that might limit them for a very long time.
So I guess your role really is to help these children remove their limiting beliefs, which we all have, and install positive beliefs about themselves and great expectations to a point, because studies have shown where teachers have been told that the group are absolutely fantastic, the high achievers. So he and she have treated them, in that way, that these are elite students and they've actually performed to what the teacher expected of them, Yes,
we always want to live up to people's expectation. And if somebody says, you're a generous person, then you will want to live up to that expectation of being generous. So as a teacher, you want to try and not limit and put people into a box that won't allow them to grow. Just because they've always been a certain way, don't label them. They can change. And that's why we believe in, we're educators. We believe we can educate people, expand their horizons, and they can grow. So never putting people in a box and limiting their growth, because that's the opposite of their job.
Yeah, and that's linked to social mobility as well. That's what a good teacher is passionate about as well. Whatever background, race, religion, economic circumstances that a child has come from, it doesn't matter. We are teaching them that you can achieve great things. You can do whatever you set your mind to. So yeah, that's a massive factor as well.
Yeah, and the thing really, isn't it? It's the more that we hear something, whether that's even our internal dialogue or whether that's what somebody's continually saying to us, the more likely we are to live up to that, absorb it, on as a belief. So definitely, I agree with that we've all got to be careful, not only to saying to other people, but what we're continually saying to ourselves on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this conversation has been amazing.
Brilliant.
And I just hope it reaches not only teachers out there, but also students and also other people that are just looking to improve their well-being in general.
Self-development.
But for the viewers at home, we always like to ask the guest, what would your 3 tips be if you could leave 3 tips that they could then take away and start implementing into their own lifestyles?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we revisit some of the branches or aspects of well-being that we've already talked about, we can think about nutrition. So one tip would be to think about the power of your food and how it could impact your physical and your mental health, and then look at ways to maximize those whole food plant-based ingredients that we know can help so much. That could look like a number of things. One thing could be your breakfast. It could be overnight oats in the morning are a great way to get some whole grains in, to get some nuts and seeds and throw on some fresh fruit or frozen fruit, whatever you have to hand. That's a good starting point. Looking at your lunch, you could think about making a good salad to take to work, and if you chuck on some extra beans that you might not normally, or some extra veggies, and as long as you're topping that up with kind of a really tasty sauce or something, then it's going to taste great. Yeah. And then look at the dinners that you're cooking as well, would be a great tip linked to nutrition. To just think about what you're already cooking and how can you add more vegetables or beans to those things. So one example we love to talk about is a spaghetti bolognese, and if you throw in some extra mushrooms and lentils, that's a great idea. Or if you have a curry, think about adding chickpeas and spinach. Just those little tweaks where we can be getting more of those whole food ingredients. So that's my first tip. I think tip 2 would be around movement and physical activity. And like we said, just look for ways to move more during the day. That could be when you wake up in the morning, a quick 10-minute body weight workout, followed by a yoga-inspired stretch could be one way to go. It could be looking at ways to add more walking to your day. Perhaps you, as we mentioned, you could get it involved in your commute somehow. Maybe you park a little bit further away from work and so you walk that extra distance. Maybe you maybe you go for a walk at break time. So instead of being sat down, if you've got the time, then go for a walk around the playground. Or maybe start an after school walk and chat kind of club with your colleagues. That could be a great way. You know, we have lots of meetings where we're sat down, but why not introduce a walking meeting instead? And it could work in the evening as well, a bit more movement in the evening. You might, a couple of evenings a week, perhaps opt for a walk around the block with your headphones on, listening to a podcast instead of sat on the sofa watching TV. That could be one thing. And my third tip, or our third tip, sorry, is to start meditating. And we realize this might be one that is a bit more out there for some people, or perhaps even a bit more scary, or something they haven't thought about doing. But we would just highly encourage people to give it a go. We've discussed the power that meditation can have, and you know, I'm in the same boat that a lot of people are in that I wouldn't have believed that I would be someone that would be meditating almost every day, and I am meditating every day. But at the same time, I maybe wouldn't believe that I would be doing yoga and going for runs with no shoes on and those kind of things as well. But again, it's just that reassessing and thinking about, is there something I can add to my life that will have a positive effect? And we really believe that meditation is one of those things. So just try it. The science is out there. It proves it will be effective. You can start with 1 minute. You can start with 5 minutes. It's just about starting. And we've got guided meditations, haven't we, that are available on social media. I know you guys have got guided meditations as well. And that's a really good starting point for someone who hasn't meditated before. And just give it a go and see where it takes you.
It's a word that sometimes has many connotations around it, and it's unfamiliar to some people. But I just want to take this quick time to say that we're going to be releasing a guide to meditation document over the next. Well, it would have been released before, way before this comes out. But if anyone listening does want to, understand a little bit more about why meditation, what it does to our brain, and how to do it, then don't hesitate to contact us at Me, Myself and Mind, and we'll send you that document out, and we'll send you guys the document as well.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. We'd be interested in reading it, definitely.
Teachers and that sort of things.
Yeah.
And we'll put that out there.
If anybody that was listening, say there was a head teacher or somebody, how can they get hold of you?
So they can get hold of us in lots of the usual ways on social media. We are on Twitter and Instagram at TeachStrong _. You can find us there. We're on Facebook as well. And yeah, we're very open to messages. So just get in touch. Anyone that has any questions about what we offer and what effect our training might have on staff, then please get in touch. And also our website as well has got lots of information about the workshops and the program that we offer. It's even got some free resources as well, which people can use, and that's www.teachstrong.co.uk.
Brilliant. And we'll attach that information to the bottom of the podcast. But yeah, it's been a great conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed it, guys.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
We have to. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys. I'm just going to
See you soon.
there.